Indiana took care of business in the New Year's Day Rose Bowl ass-kicking of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And as usual, Heisman Trophy winner and the best quarterback in the country, Fernando Mendoza, was underused and spectacular. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. Mendoza and the Hoosiers roll the Tide.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, 38-3, and the script for Kirk Cignetti's Indiana Hoosier team was usual, as usual, and effective. And that script goes something like this. Don't make mistakes. Look like you are really, really well coached. Execute on both sides of the ball. Watch your defense kick the other team's ass. Methodically pound the rock with a really nice scheme and two really talented, hard-running running backs. Keep Fernando Mendoza's pass attempts to a minimum. But when you do unleash him, stand back and watch him throw some great balls. And as a former offensive coordinator who threw the hell out of the ball, my philosophy always went like this. Play a really fast and aggressive defense, have great special teams, don't make mistakes, do your job, handle adversity, and score 40 or 50 points. That's going to win you a whole bunch of football games. And so I've watched Indiana play a lot this season with both admiration and frustration. Curt Cignetti and his staff do a hell of a job coaching. Great fundamentals. Those guys are always ready to play. They execute great, and they don't beat themselves. And as I've said a bunch on this channel, the bottom line in football is winning football games. And the Hoosiers do efficiently move the football and they do score points. But with Mendoza and those three receivers that he has, wow, the possibilities. But this video is on the Rose Bowl and the efficient and surgical quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. As always, guys, please like and share this video out. It really helps my channel. Pass the word to your buddies and subscribe to QB Unfiltered. I really appreciate the support. Okay, before we jump into Mendoza's Rose Bowl performance, I want to make a quick observation on each one of the other three playoff games this past weekend, starting with Miami's huge takedown of Ohio State. You know, Ohio State's offensive line and pass protection was an issue for them. Their offensive tackles got abused all night long. And in fact, quarterback Julian Sand was very, very uncomfortable out there the entire game. He just had a look on his face like he wasn't exactly fired up about what was going on around him every time he dropped back to throw. And what has become pretty much a loop for every offensive coordinator in the country with running screens, it's punch screen, punch screen, punch screen, punch screen. Now, I've talked about this before in other videos that you do not see a whole lot of jailbreak screens, and you hardly ever see the running back slip screen, and those two are killers. Well, in this game, on the biggest down of the game, down in distance in the fourth quarter, with Miami up by 3 points, and on a third down call, offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson dialed up the jailbreak screen to receiver Daniels, executed perfect. They gashed the Buckeyes, and it led to the touchdown, which ultimately gave them the 10-point win. Next up, Texas Tech and Oregon in the Orange Bowl. What the Red Raiders did offensively in the first quarter is pretty much impossible to do. 0 first downs, minus 13 yards rushing, 11 yards passing, which means they had minus 2 yards of total offense in the first quarter. They ran 6 offensive plays and they punted the ball twice. That is bad. Okay, and then finally, the Ole Miss win over Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and this one had two components, or has two components. Hats off to the coaching staff for Ole Miss on one hand, okay? For them to keep their team dialed in and focused with the Lane Kiffin circus going on with LSU, so hats off there. Now, on the other side of this, the second component to the coaching, you have a handful of coaches that are preparing Ole Miss for their game against Miami coming up, and they've already committed to go coach at LSU next season. Now, you can bet your ass that while they're preparing their players to play the Canes, they're also trying to poach those same players to get them to go to Baton Rouge next year. That's how out of control college football is right now. But I digress. Okay, let's get back to Fernando Mendoza. His stat line against Alabama. He threw the ball 16 times. Okay, he was 14 for 16. That's 4 pass attempts per quarter for the Heisman Trophy winner. That's also 87.5% completion. He threw for 192 yards, 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions. You know, I would love in some alternate universe to watch a game where Indiana came out, went tempo, no huddle, ran 85 to 90 snaps. You know, let Mendoza throw it 50 times with those 3 receivers he has, Cooper, Surratt, and Becker. 85 to 90 snaps gives you 35 or so snaps to hand the rock off in the running game. If Mendoza's chucking it 50 times, man, those numbers would be astronomical, and that would be really fun to watch. Okay, let's get into some game clips here with Fernando Mendoza. First play of the game for Indiana offensively, and there is a whole lot going on here. It's first quarter, it's 1st and 10. Indiana's in a tight end right with a receiver outside of him to the right, 2 receivers to the left, and defensively, Bama's in an eagle 2 over. Okay, so they've slid their linebackers over, and then they stem to an eagle the other way. So they take their whole defensive line and they go from one eagle and stem the eagle to the other side. Okay, some stuff going on here that's tipping what's going to come. If you watch the 6 technique that's lined up over Indiana's left tackle, when they do their stemming, he goes from a 6 to a 4. He goes from outside shade to inside shade, which has got to tell everybody that something is probably coming off that edge in the form of that slot defender out there. And if we go back and replay what this slot defender is doing, check out his body language. Just take a look at him and ask yourself, is he tipping that he's coming with how he's fidgeting around and starting to hedge a little bit out there on the perimeter? And he does indeed come on the snap. Okay, so on the snap, Bama drops that 4 technique over the tackle back into coverage. They bring that slot defender to C like we talked about. They also drop the 3 technique lined up on the right guard, so he's dropped back into the box. And they bring both inside linebackers, so they've got a 5-man rush here, and they play cover 0 behind it. Okay, now this is somewhat of a confusing look for pass protection. Okay, they've got a lot of guys in the box. They have the possibility of bringing a combination of a lot of guys or not a lot of guys. You don't know, but they're playing cover 0. And the thing that I want you to look at is the depth of the cornerback lined up over the left outside receiver for Indiana and the depth of the safety lined up over the slot. So we're talking about what, 8-9 yards off? Look at all that grass out there, and they're running the outside guy on a quick out, and they're running the slot receiver on a stick route, and both of these guys are open. Now, Fernando Mendoza has got to know that they're in 0. That's obvious. He also has to know that they could possibly bring one more guy than what Indiana can block, so he's got to get the ball out of his hand. Now, he's going to GST this, grab, stab, and throw. So he catches the snap, snaps his eyes to the left. So I don't know whether he's keying the quick out or the stick route. Both those guys are open, but Fernando doesn't cut it loose. And because he's just standing there with a GST and holding the football, pretty soon his offensive line and that pass rush is right in his lap, and he gets sacked. Okay, Indiana is running zone routes here. Right now, I don't know if they don't have adjustments based on man zone with the routes that they've got called. But besides the quick out by the outside left receiver, all the other receivers are running zone sit down routes against man coverage. That's not good. Now, the combination of dudes that Bama brings, Indiana does a great job. They've got everybody blocked up. Okay. But because Fernando holds the ball in a GST quickly, those guys are in his lap. He's got nowhere to go and he's sacked. All right, next play, same drive. First quarter, it's 3rd and 4. Indiana's in trips left with a wing, so their number 3 receiver to the trip side is in that wing position. They have a single receiver to the right, and Bama lines up in a 3-4 defense. So they got 7 dudes in the box there, and really, that's pretty much an 8-man box. Okay, now you got to know, based on them being in man coverage, that one of those guys in the box has the wing man-to-man, and one of those other linebackers has the running back man-to-man. Okay, they're playing cover 0, and again, the corner is way off, 9 yards off, and the safety over the slot, 8 yards off. Okay, on the snap, Bama, they bluff blitz and drop the inside linebacker who's walked up, and he's playing the running back. The other inside linebacker, they drop back for QB draw, but they brain jam and they bring the dude who's supposed to be playing the wing in man-to-man. Okay, so that's a numbers problem for Indiana. Not only it's a problem because he's coming when he should be playing man-to-man on the wing, who, when he releases, nobody runs with him. And they've also got an issue because of that ghost lined up to Mendoza's right side. And ultimately, on the snap of the ball, that dude's coming unblocked. Okay, the biggest problem on this play is Indiana's got all kinds of grass to the left, to Mendoza's left, and they don't attack it with a blitz beater. Run a hitch, run a slant, run a stick, run an option route, okay? But what you can't do is run verticals where Mendoza's holding the ball or intermediate routes where Mendoza's holding the ball. That ghost comes off the edge to the right side free, and Fernando Mendoza is sacked. Okay, that takes us now to Fernando Mendoza's second best throw of the game. It's first quarter, it's 2nd and 9. Indiana's in a wing left with a receiver outside to the left and 2 receivers to the right. Bama is in a 4-2 over with the middle linebacker on the line of scrimmage, walked up, standing right in the face of the center. And then they stem before the ball snapped to a 4-1 with a ghost. They initially show cover 3, but on the snap of the ball, they play cover 0. Also, and Bama's playing a whole bunch of games with who they're dropping, who they're bringing. So on the snap here, they drop the 3 technique. They drop that Mike linebacker that's walked up over the center. They bring the ghost and they bring the slot defender to the right side, Mendoza's right side, and they bring him to B gap. And the free safety's tipping that this dude's coming, to the right side by stemming out of center field and walking over towards that slot receiver to the right. That tells you that probably that slot defender is going to end up coming, which he does. Okay, Indiana keeps the wing in to block the ghost, and after the play fake, the running back crosses Mendoza's face to block the B-gap blitzer. Mendoza executes a play fake, 3-step drop, then 2 hitch steps. He pats the ball, right? And then he dimes a deep out to Becker for 29 yards. Now, after Mendoza drops, all told, this throw is about a 37 or 38 yard rope right on the sideline and right on the screws to Becker for a big completion. I need to say something about Fernando Mendoza and his hitch steps and patting the ball. He has got a muscle memory thing, which I don't think this is coached up. If it is coached up, it's a coincidence that he did the same thing when he played at Cal last year. But when I watched him last year in Cal and I'm watching him this year, he hitches on just about every one of his throws. And I think that might be a muscle memory thing for him. There's a time when you should be hitching. There are hitches built into QB drops that mesh with depths of certain intermediate throws. But I think, and I'm going to talk about this in detail on one play later on in this game, I think when Mendoza hitches up a lot of times, he's getting the ball out of his hand a tick 2 or 3 late, and that causes issues at the other end with the receiver and the DBs. The other thing that's a bad habit of his is he pats the ball on everything, right? When you're patting, you're not pushing it up and throwing. You're patting, then you're pushing it up and throwing. Okay, enough of that. What cracked me up on this, watch Cignetti on the sideline when Becker makes the catch. He just very casually puts his head down and signals first down like, I know what he's thinking. He's going, yeah, I see that every day in practice. No big deal. That's Fernando Mendoza's second best throw of the game. Okay, one quick little Bama clip here. This will be the only one I show in this video today. This has to drive Bama fans nuts. It's 4th and 1, and offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb takes his starting quarterback, Ty Simpson, out and lines him up as an outside receiver. So you got your starting quarterback. That's not in the play at all. You go wildcat, and then you don't run with your running back. You're going to run the ball. Instead, you pitch it forward to a receiver going laterally on a slower developing run play that has no chance. Okay. And again, it's 4th and 1. You can't run running plays that go laterally. It's too slow. You got to come downhill, be aggressive if you're going to hand it off, or pick your best quick game throw and chuck it for the first down. But this play has zero chance. By the way, the two dudes that make this play defensively, number one is that stand-up linebacker on the line of scrimmage lined up over the tight end, and the other one is the cornerback to that side. Both of these guys maintain outside leverage on the dudes that are trying to block them, and by keeping that outside leverage on those two blockers, they force Alabama's ball carrier to cut the ball back up inside where all of the other defensive dudes are there to swallow him up. Okay, that takes us now to Fernando Mendoza's best throw of the game. Second quarter, it's 3rd and 8. Indiana is in trips left, and Alabama is in this weird eagle where instead of having the shaded nose opposite of the 3 technique, they've got them on the same side as the 3 technique. And then they take the 2 inside linebackers and they walk them both over to the uncovered guard side. Okay. This is a really weird looking eagle front and box for Alabama. And on the snap of the ball, they're going to bring those 2 linebackers and they're going to bring 3 defensive linemen. Okay, so Bama drops the 3 technique over Indy's right guard and one of the inside linebackers that's over to that overloaded side. And so again, this is a 5-man rush for the Crimson Tide. And, you know, the running back for Indiana here does a great job on blitz pickup, squares up, does a great job with the pass pro. They've got the number 1 receiver running a dig route. Number 3 is running a dig route, but this is an isolation bender to Becker versus cover 0. They're taking the cornerback and then defender over number 3 out of the play with those dig routes, and they're running that bender route to Becker. This is an isolation play from the get-go. This is a great call versus cover 0. Now, Mendoza takes a 4-step drop, and yes, I'm going to have to rail about that here real quick. He's in the wrong pre-snap stagger, okay? And because he's in the wrong stance, he has to take an extra step, so his 3-step drop becomes a 4-step drop. He hitches up because that's in his muscle memory. He pats the ball because that's in his muscle memory. But he also hitches up because his 3rd step or his 4th step is way too long, and he's forced to hitch up. Okay, so he's got a lot of extra moving parts on this deal, but the bottom line is he cuts loose and throws a laser to Becker in the end zone on that bender for a touchdown. Becker goes up with real, strong hands, makes a nice clean catch. It's a 21-yard touchdown pass. In my opinion, this is Mendoza's best throw of the game, and this was also Indiana sending a message to Alabama saying, this one's over. Okay, we go from Mendoza's best pass of the game to his 5th best pass of the game. And this one here was an incompletion. The throw was great. The ball was incomplete. And this is a great example of wasted motion and taking extra steps and how it jumps up and bites you in the ass. And the bottom line on this play is Indiana missed a huge opportunity to make a big gash completion or a touchdown catch on this play. And at the end of the day, it was an incomplete pass. I think that they have one route that is incorrect and played a factor in this thing being knocked down. And then just the extra steps that Mendoza takes also leads to this. Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, second quarter, it's 3rd and 12. Indiana is in trips left. They've got that number 3 receiver is a wing, and then they've got a single receiver to the right Bama's an Eagle 2 wide. So they take those two inside linebackers. Instead of being stacked over the offensive guards, they widen them out and they're stacked now behind the offensive tackles. That's Eagle 2 wide. They start off in cover 4, and on the snap of the ball, they rotate to cover 3. Now, we've talked about a bunch on this channel that cover 3 is the absolute worst coverage to play against a team that knows what they're doing throwing the ball. There are so many route concepts that absolutely kill cover 3, and Indiana runs one of those right here. They just run it in kind of a unique way. So usually what you do, what I did when I coached and we knew we were going to get cover 3, this was automatic for us. We'd go to trips like they're in here. We'd run the number 1 or the outside receiver on a vertical. We'd run the number 3 or the wing guy here on a diagonal vertical where he's crossing the face of the free safety and working to the opposite hash, which has a tendency to pull that free safety with him. And then we take the number 2 receiver and run him right down the hash or the seam. And that guy's running all by himself. What Indiana does, instead of running number 1 on a vertical, they run him on a hitch. And I think that this led to one of the reasons why this ball was broken up. So they run him on a hitch, and then they run a little switch concept with the wing and number 2. So number 2 is coming inside, up the field, stick the toe, and run the dig, hopefully to have an effect on that free safety. And the wing now comes outside off of number 2's ass, and he's up the seam. So the wing, after the switch, basically becomes the number 2 receiver running that seam route. Okay, so Indiana's got the play dialed up. Okay, let's talk about Mendoza's feet. So he's in the wrong stagger, which means he has to take an extra step. He then takes a 3-step drop, which in effect is a 4-step drop. And then he takes his usual hitch step, right? So that's 2 extra steps that he's taken on this 3-step drop. I want you to watch when that wing is open on that seam vertical. He's open 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. Now, one of the problems with this play is the wing is slow turning his head and snapping eyes to the ball. This thing should have been thrown way sooner. So as I said, he's open 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. When he catches the ball, when the ball makes contact with his hands, he's about 16 or 17 yards down the field. 16 or 17 yards that ball has to travel in the air. And that's all a result of Mendoza taking an extra step. So the 3-step becomes a 4-step, and then a hitch step, which becomes the 5th step, pat the ball and throw it. All right. Now let's talk about the outside receiver. Instead of running a vertical and taking that cornerback with him, who has to honor that vertical because he's got deep outside third, they hitch that guy up. The cornerback is getting depth, but he is looking at Fernando's eyes, and he can see where he's going with that ball. And because Fernando's late getting it out of his hand, that guy's able to break on the throw, and it's the cornerback who breaks up the play when this wing catches the ball. That's pretty amazing stuff. You know, this could have very easily have been called a fumble. And they looked at it on replay and they just said that he didn't have it long enough for possession. Yeah, I don't know about that. Indiana missed a big opportunity on this play. Even though it was an incomplete pass, this was a hell of a throw by Mendoza. He put it right on the money. He was just late getting it there. Okay, this is really tough for any defense to stop. And it's really, really tough when you're playing man coverage and you're pressing your corners up and both corners get used and abused and beat on inside releases, and they end up chasing dudes across the end zone, which is exactly what happens to Alabama here. It's second quarter, it's 2nd and goal from the 1-yard line. Indiana's in a tight end, and they split down a receiver to the right and they split a receiver down to the left. And the reason they're splitting those guys down is because they're running them on mesh routes on the snap of the ball. They have Mendoza under center with the running back in a tailback position and a wing or a blocking back in a 3-point stance offset in the backfield. This is a good old-fashioned come downhill run formation. And that's probably what Alabama is thinking. So on the snap, Bama brings the house. Indy blocks with 8 dudes, and they run a 2-receiver route. And as we said, that's a mesh route, and Mendoza can take his pick because either guy's open. As a corner playing man coverage pressed up, you cannot get beat inside. The reason why is because if the receiver runs a crossing route, you're chasing his ass all the way across the field, which is what both of these guys do on this play. Now, Mendoza does a hell of a job here because when he's done with his drop, he has to get into a shuffle or a fade to stay away from the rush and wait for that mesh to happen before he can throw the football. So he does a great job of shuffling back, fading back, and then throwing this sucker off his back foot and putting an absolute perfect throw on Cooper for the 1-yard touchdown. This also stakes the Hoosiers out to a 17-0 lead. Okay, that takes us to Fernando Mendoza's 4th best throw of the game. It's third quarter. It's 3rd and 1. Now, Indiana has taken tight end or a receiver out of the game and put a 6th offensive lineman in as a tight end. So they got 6 linemen. Plus they've got a tight wing to the left and they've got 2 receivers to the left. Really an overload there with the offensive formation. Alabama's in Eagle 2 over and they're playing cover 0. Now Indiana is in an 8-man protection and Alabama playing cover 0 only brings 4 guys. Now listen, any offensive coordinator at any level will tell you, if you're going against a defense that's playing cover 0 in the secondary, no safety help, no help anywhere, it's straight up man-to-man cover 0. And pass rush wise, you get a 4-man rush, a 3-man rush, whatever. In other words, you don't have pressure coming from a lot of dudes. It makes it easy as hell to stand back there as a quarterback and just pick and choose and how you're going to dissect that coverage, which is exactly what happens here. Indiana's blocking with 8. Alabama runs cover 0 and brings 4 dudes. I don't get that. Okay, Cooper's in the slot. He's running a half-ass slant fake vertical bender type deal. Not exactly sure what he's running here, but this is Surratt, the man playing against boys for Indiana, a mismatch against any cornerback. He's running the ISO route against a man corner. Now, you can say that he was faking a slant. This is a slant and go. If it is, this again is a horseshit slant move. I'm saying that he's just stemming him and nodding to the inside and then going outside and running by him. I want you to watch Alabama's corner. Their corners, I don't know, guys. This guy's in man-to-man, and on the snap of the ball, he flat-foots it and gets into a sumo wrestling stance with his feet wider than his shoulders planted in the ground. There is no way that he can turn his hips and run with Surratt, and Surratt runs right by him. Mendoza takes his 4-step drop, his habitual hitch step, pats the ball, and then he dimes this vertical in the end zone to Surratt for a 24-yard TD. This is easy money for Mendoza. I've said this all season long with him. Any throw to the outside for him, vertical, back shoulder fade, deep out route, stop route, whatever. Anything that he throws to the outside, he is absolutely automatic money. And this is one of those throws, and this is easy for him. Easy, easy, easy. Great ball location, okay? Great spot. Surratt goes up strong, great hands, clean catch. This is Fernando Mendoza's 4th best throw of the game, which takes us to the last clip we're going to talk about. This is Mendoza's 3rd best throw of the game. It's 4th quarter. It's 3rd and 8. Indiana's in a wing left with a receiver outside to the left and 2 receivers to the right. They motion that wing now from left to right And on the snap of the ball, they do a full 5-man slide with the offensive line to the left. They take that wing who is in motion, and he's going to pin that end man on the line of scrimmage, and Mendoza is going to roll right. And they've got Bama out leveraged right off the bat. They also take their running back and they're trying to run him on a shoot route. Okay, now he gets sort of tangled up with the guy that's playing him, trying to jam him up and reroute him a little bit. But the routes that they're running here, the outside receiver to the right's going vertical. Cooper's in the slot. He's running the deep out route. As I said, that running back's trying to run a shoot route to the flat. And then the single receiver on the left side's running the deep crossing route. So basically, this is your good old-fashioned flood route. All the receivers are moving to the right. Mendoza's rolling to the right. Now, Fernando dimes this deep out. I want you to check out what he does with his left leg as that ball's coming out of his hand. So when he rolls here, he doesn't have a chance to start coming downhill where he can square his hips and shoulders up on this throw because the running back and his guy are almost in his lap. So it's almost like Mendoza has to throw this with his momentum going more towards the sideline than what he would want. But it's what he does with his left leg. So as that ball's starting to come out, he plants off that right foot. And with that left leg, he swings it forward and out as that ball is coming out. And the reason he does that is to get that extra torque and energy going in the direction of that throw so that he can get some gas on it, which he does. And he throws a BB out there to Cooper on that deep out on the move. This is a hell of a throw by Fernando Mendoza. 38-yard completion and his third best throw of the game. Okay, so Indiana rolls on, and guys, they really look like a confident, well-coached, and well-oiled machine. Up next for the Hoosiers is the Oregon Ducks. You know, my next video is going to be on the Miami Hurricanes and Ole Miss. I'm really looking forward to doing that game. I'm a big Canes fan, and I'm looking forward to analyzing Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Did I get it right or did I get it wrong? Hope everybody has a great 2026, a great new year. This is QB Unfiltered, and remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.